Lalita Shri Vishakanvitamscha Revapre Navabhakti Shasya Vitati Sanjivani Swagama Rambe Kamata Partudaha Damani Vishwa Pugolasini Duran Me Marushakino Pisarasi Bhavaya Bhuyat Prabhu Shri Chaitanya Kripana Rankusha Maha Madhurya Kadambini Hari Om Tat Sat. So, continuing our little study of Madhurya Kadambini. So, the section we're in now, Sri Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is describing Anartha Nivritti. He's already described Shraddha, Sadhu Sangha, and Anishita Bhajan Kriya. Now he's describing Anartha Nivritti. So he opens up by saying there are 4 categories of anarthas. Anarthas coming from sin, piety, aparad, and bhakti. So then he begins to elaborate on each of these categories, saying that the anarthas that arise from sin and piety basically are coming from the kleshas of avidya, etc. And then the anarthas arising from aparad means the anarthas coming from the nam-aparads. So if these nam-aparads are done unconsciously, then by constant chanting of the holy name of Krishna, when it attains nishta, and these anarthas are destroyed. But in the case where anarthas happen the anartha of aparad took place by conscious decision, then there are specific activities one is to undertake in order to nullify the anartha. So with that, he begins discussing nullification of the 10 anarthas that should take place if one has consciously committed that particular aparad. So he started, of course, with sadhu ninda. We didn't mention this, but also guru abhagya. Guru abhagya means to disrespect the guru. So the guru is also a sadhu. So the points that Sri Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur brought up in relationship to sadhu ninda also applies to the guru. So he just gives a little gloss of that 3rd aparad there. And the nullification, of course, of that anartha is to seek blessings of the sadhu. If he's not pacified, then for many days you should try to serve him. Still, if not pacified, you should just quit everything and lament incessantly and chant Harinam, and then gradually you'll be forgiven. So this applies, of course, to any sadhu, and you may say especially to the guru. It is mentioned in Shastra that if one offends Lord Hari, then the guru can give you protection. But if one offends the guru, then no one in the universe can give protection. So that's why we sing every morning, Yasya prasada, Bhagavad prasada, Yasya aprasada nagiti kotopi. That by pleasing the guru, then everything can be achieved. But if the guru is displeased, then there's nothing in the universe that can save you. So offense to the guru is very, very grave. So it should be avoided. Of course, same principles that apply to sadhu ninda especially apply to the guru. After that, he begins a discussion of the 2nd offense. It was a little bit lengthy. And the basic idea is that that particular offense takes place on account of not understanding the subtleties of tattva that underpin reality. Like Krishna is saying in Bhagavad Gita, what is that? Varjanma karma chame divyam evam yo veti tattutaha. Right? He uses the word that those who understand the janma and karma of my janma and karma, my birth and activities, you understand them to be divya, spiritual or transcendental. And you understand them in truth, veti tattutaha, you know it in tattva. Later on, Krishna in chapter 9, Bhagavad Gita says that people equate him with the devatas, or they worship the devatas because they don't know the tattva of the devatas' position, and therefore they are worshiping. If they knew the tattva that underpins the existence of the devatas and God, then they would not worship the devatas, but rather worship him. He says that those who worship the devatas, they worship only him, but they do so in the wrong way, avidhi purvaka, like watering the leaves of the tree without watering the root. And so because of that avidhi purvakam, which is due to a lack of understanding of the tattva, then they continue in the cycle of birth and death that is mentioned there. So basically it was long discussion about that. This aparat takes place because people don't understand the subtleties of reality, and therefore transgressions take place. So one should hear from sadhus and understand the subtleties of reality to avoid this sort of offense. Okay, so having discussed the first three offenses, then he goes into the shruti, the fourth offense to the holy name. And then he concludes his gloss of the 10 offenses. So we'll just look at that briefly here. So shruti shastra nindanam. So here nindanam means again to blaspheme, to see fault and to see some fault and then to amplify it into the atmosphere. This is called nindanam. So shruti shastra. So to blaspheme the shruti shastra, sometimes I know devotees, because of our predilection toward comparative religion, having grown up in the West, nothing should stand out, everything should be equalized. Part of the disease of impersonalism. We like to say, oh, Shastra means the Bible and the Quran and this and that. But here, Padma Purana is not talking about the Quran or the Bible or this and that. They're talking about the Shruti literatures, which largely deal with the karma and Gyan mark. Most of Shruti Shastra, let's say 75% of it is dealing with karma mark, because most people are helplessly inclined towards materialism and they cannot resist material absorption. So there's so many shastras for helping these people. Krishna Shastra, you could say Krishna in the form of Shastra, Shabda Praman, is equally disposed towards everyone. He's trying to help everyone. That's why Shastra is also called as Kalpataru, a desire tree. It's trying to help everyone to make progress from where they're standing. So most people are materially absorbed. So there's a way to exist in the world as a materialist by which you can enjoy nicely with the least amount of devastation. Of course, the material world is itself ekpad vibhuti. It's characterized by only one, dimension of, there's only really one dimension. Yeah, I'm looking for a different word. We'll use the word dimension. There's really only one dimension to this material world, and that's mortality. So when there's mortality, there's of course fear and inauspiciousness. So that's why this world is called ekpad vibhuti, in contradistinction with the spiritual world, which is called tripad vibhuti. So there's three dimensions to that spiritual substance. In short, Satchidananda, it's characterized by Amrita, immortality, or Sat, is characterized by fearlessness, Abhaya, which is a type of chit or awareness. And it's also characterized by Kshema, auspiciousness, or Ananda, Satchidananda, Amrita, Abhaya, Kshema. So that's the spiritual world. The material world, only one characteristic is here, Mrita, death. So if there is death, there's going to be fear and inauspiciousness. So don't need to mention them separately. So because the material world, and where everything is under threat of death at literally every moment, there's always some level of inauspiciousness in the karma mark. Still, there is a way to enjoy nicely. If you're really into the material enjoyment principle, there are shastras that help you do it nicely so that you can maximize your enjoyment. That karma mark, for those who have transcended karma mark, having been able to see through the ruse or the guile of material existence, then many of them get attracted to the idea of liberation. They take to Gyan mark. So a lot of shastra appears to only be dealing with this karma mark and Gyan mark. So if you become bhakta, you develop faith in bhakti shastra. So because of the faith in bhakti shastra, you look at the karma mark, you look at the Gyan mark, or shastras that discuss them, and you say, oh, they're not glorifying bhakti, what nonsense. And then you start speaking the faults of shastras that deal with karma mark and Gyan mark. thinking it's nonsense because they don't talk bhakti, they don't glorify Bhagavan exclusively or in the highest position, etc. So that is considered as nindana, that's considered blasphemy of the Shruti Shastra. And one is blasphemy the Shruti Shastra. Because these Shastras are also helping people to move towards God. God in any of his features, Brahman, Paramatma, Bhagavan, but in the direction toward the absolute truth. That is the whole purpose of any Shastra, to turn the living entity who is beginninglessly turned away from God to turn towards God. That is the purpose of Shastra. What is this statement? It's coming in Sanatan Shiksha. Maya Mugda Jivera Nahi Swata Krishna Gan. Jivera Kripai Vyasa Veda Purana. I'm butchering that last line. So the living entity of Maya Mugda. Maya Mugda means completely bewildered by Maya, Shakti. Maya Mugda Jivera Nahi Swata Krishna Gan. Therefore, he cannot get Krishna Gyan by his own power. It is not possible. So Jivera Kripai, showing mercy to these jivas who are helplessly bewildered by Maya Shakti, the Supreme Lord assumed the form of Vyasadeva and gave the Veda Purana. He's giving all the Vedas and the Puranas to help the living entities who are turned away from him because of Maya turn toward him. So that means the whole purpose of Karma Shastra, Gyan Shastra, and of course Bhakti Shastra is to help the living entities move progressively in the direction toward the Godhead. So all of them are glorious in this particular way. So the Bhakta who doesn't understand this, he will blaspheme karma mark, or Shastra is dealing with karma mark, or someone's giving some class, maybe not a Bhakta, but someone giving class and he's glorifying karma mark, and you say, what a rascal, what a nonsense, this, that. And that's also considered blasphemy. So the solution for this is you have to understand the real purpose of Shastra, all of the Shastra. So that comes from hearing from sadhu. And the same mouth that you use to criticize Shastra, that same mouth you should use to glorify Shastra. And that way, in a spirit of repentance for one's ignorance, having ascertained the truth of the real purpose of the existence of Shastra from sadhus, one can nullify this particular offense. Okay, so that's basically the fourth offense. And then he concludes his whole paragraph. He says this: one should thus understand the cause and nullification of the other 6 nam-aparadhs. So he's not going to discuss them. So having discussed 4 of them, he says we should be able to intuit. There is such thing as a devotional intuition. It is there. Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yenamam payantite. Krishna will give the dadami buddhi if you are doing his bhajan with affection, with faith and affection, and you're constantly engaged in his bhakti, satata yuktanam, then he will give the buddhi yoga. So you'll experience it as I don't have a better word for it other than devotional intuition. Because Krishna said, I will give the buddhi yoga by which you can come to me. That means cross over the obstacles to your bhakti and come to Krishna. So with this devotional intuition, you should be able to make out, I guess, that's what Sri Vishnu apparently is indicating, how you would avoid the other offenses. Basically, there's the cause of the offense, and then there's the nullification of it. So from what Sri Vishnu spoke so far, the cause of the offense is looking at the spiritual thing from the material perspective. That's basically the cause. And ignorance of its ontological position. As spirit, we look at it as Maya, or some part of Prakriti, basically. So that's an ignorance about the ontology, the true existence of the thing, whether it's the holy name, or it's the devotee, or it's the Shastra, etc. So the ignorance of ontology is cured by Shravanam, hearing from Guru. Shravan Guru is there, Shiksha Guru is there, Diksha Guru is there. You hear from Guru Dev, that's how that particular ignorance of ontology is dismissed. So that means our ignorance is cured by association with sadhu. And basically, when you look at all the other offenses, that's what's going to be required to nullify them. Okay, there's some ignorance about its true ontological position. that ignorance can only be cured by appropriate sadhu sangha who explains the thing and also protects us. Because sadhus, if you live with sadhus, they protect by not allowing, in some sense, by not even allowing certain thoughts to appear. If you're around especially very deep sadhus, you can't even think certain things. I promise you, this is definitely the case because of the gravity of their own bhakti. Yeah, I think that's a good gravity. There's like a gravitational pull, like nothing, certain things are just not allowed to come up to the surface because of that devotional gravity. It keeps it from happening when you're in certain levels of sangha. Like when I'm in the association of my Guru Day, for example, he's extremely grave. And you don't even think to like criticize, even if someone has actually done a transgression against you or against someone that you care about and so on, and you go in front of, at least my experience like this, even if I have to bring it up, which is like, I don't normally bring it up, but if I had to, I'm like so careful about how I articulate it because yeah, it won't be tolerated. I know it won't be tolerated. So in this way, sadhus give protection, they give enlightenment, and they also give protection from our own selves. And this way you can nullify or deal with the other 10 offenses. That's what Sri Vishnu is saying. We should be able to understand the cause and nullification of the other 6 non-aparats. We could go through the other 6 of them. I have, of course, a particular slide with all the 10 offenses there, but maybe if you're interested to hear that, we can go afterwards. Otherwise, I'm going to move to the next topic. So having discussed the anarthas that come from aparat and their nullification, he had mentioned there were 4 categories of anarthas, right? So now he wants to discuss the 4th category, which are anarthas that come up from bhakti yoga. So he writes here, you can see on the screen, I think. Now anarthas arising out of bhakti are being described. They grow along with the main bhakti creeper as weeds. Such weeds appear as wealth gain, fame, respect, and others like etc. Received from bhakti, and they influence the heart of a devotee. By their nature, they choke the development of the main bhakti creeper. We kind of heard about this earlier when discussing Taranga Rangini, the riding the waves of bhakti. It was the 6th type of Anishtita, Bhajan Kriya. So we heard about this there, where the word Taranga, which means the waves, refers to the upashakas, or the weeds that also grow with the bhakti creeper. So here I decided to put the verse. This is from Mahaprabhu's teachings to Rupa Goswami from the Chaitanya Charitamrita. So you know the story of how the jiva, if he's fortunate, he gets the association of Gurudev, who gives him the Bhakti Lata Bija. Then he's a water the Bhakti Lata Bija with Shrava and Kirtan that are compared to the waters. His own heart is compared to fertile soil. That means there's some Shraddha there. And he waters it and the creeper begins to grow. But along with the creeper, these upashakas, weeds, can come up. So this Mahaprabhu is speaking. I'm just going to read the English here. He says, sometimes the parasitic creepers of the desire for enjoyment or liberation sprout alongside the vine of devotion. These upashakas are unlimited. So basically the upashakas have 2 categories, bhukti and mukti. And Rupa Goswami is also told about this, right? Bhukti mukti spriha yava prishachi hidi vartate. Tava bhakti sukhasyatra katam abhudhayo bhavet. We mentioned this verse last class, I think, also. So if the desire for bhukti and mukti in the heart, then how can the desire for bhakti be nourished? It would be too preoccupied with bhukti and mukti. So he said, Jato asankhya. This word asankhya, incidentally, I'm in our men's sangha on Sunday, we're studying we're looking at the Brahma Vimohan Lila, which starts with the killing of Aghasura. And there, when Krishna summons his friends, and the pastime begins with Krishna awaking in the morning. He wants to eat in the forest. Normally he's eating at home, and then going to the forest. But this time he wants to eat in the forest. He's told his friends the previous day that you gather all your eatables and you bring them with you. We're going to eat in the forest. And so next morning he wakes and he blows his bugle horn, which has very pleasing nature. And the cowherd boys are very happy to be awakened by the bugle horn. So when they wake, they all come running out of their houses. Tens and thousands of cowherd boys come running out of their houses. And they all have like a sankhya, like unlimited cows. And then Krishna, he comes out after also, and it's described there, Krishna Vatsa Asankyatai. He also has, this word Asankhya is used, unlimited cows. So this word Asankhya, and one of the commentaries, they were giving like sort of like a mathematical gradation of what is Sahasra and what is Nirubda and all these the different categories of large numbers. Anyway, the word Asankhya is literally a one followed by, not Asankhya, the word Parabdha is one followed by 17 zeros. So I'm kind of bad at math. So it looked like that was like a trillion. I think that was a trillion. Like 3 is 100, 6 is 1,000, 9 is 1,000,000, 12 is 1 billion, 15, I guess, is 1 trillion, and then, okay, maybe I did that wrong. Anyway, so it's a one followed by 17 zeros. It's a huge number. Now, if that's one parabda, and one parabda 4 times is one asankhya. So it's like literally a number that can't even be conceived. It's like a huge number. And that's literally how many cows came out with Krishna when he came to join the cowherd boys, who themselves had like a huge number of cows. So one may be wondering, how is it possible in Vrindavan, only in Vrindavan, so many cows were there? So of course, Krishna is unlimited. Everything about him is unlimited. So it's inconceivable. It's like it's inconceivable that there are unlimited material worlds or literally unlimited jivas. All of it is actually completely inconceivable. The concept of unlimited can't actually be conceived by the material mind. So in any case, here he's using the word asankhya to describe the number of upashakas that are there. So that's kind of scary. But bhukti mukti vansha jata asankhya. So then he gives some sort of general categories of upashakas that come up. So he says here, they include forbidden behavior, nisiddhachar, duplicity, kutinati, violence, jiva himsana, to other living entities, and a desire for wealth, fame, and a recognition, labha, puja, and pratishta. So upashakagana, these are some of the groups or major categories of weeds that come up. They drink up all the water of the sadhaka's hearing and chanting. Seka jala paya upashaka parijay. And this way they are nourished and flourish while the growth of the bhakti lata is impaired. Stabda haya mula shaka bhadite napai. So that means you're doing bhakti bhajan, but instead of your bhakti creeper being able to blossom very nicely, all these upashakas themselves are getting nourished. And your creeper is getting strangled. An intelligent devotee must uproot a parasitic creeper as soon as he spots it, so that the original vine of devotion may flourish and reach the lotus feet of Sri Krishna and Vrindavan. So one can't be lazy about removing the weeds. It means if you notice it coming up, desire for recognition, desire for being worshipped, bad behavior justified on the strength of your bhakti, etc., it has to be attacked or removed, you can say, aggressively. Otherwise, what ends up happening is that they create an absorption, basically, and matter. That's the basic idea here. So that your bhakti desire isn't able to get any sunlight, so to speak, or get any nourishment. And just like if you go to like a lake, like a small lake, that has really tall grass surrounding it on all sides. So this example is given in the 4th canto Bhagavatam. Then imperceptibly, the lake is getting drained because the the tall stalks of grass, they drink through their feet, right? They're drinking from the root. So they're drinking the water of the lake so that the water is gradually getting diminished. This example is being given. So imperceptibly, these upashakas, if they're not cut down, then all the water from Shravan Kirtan will get drunk by them. And perceptibly, you just become completely materialistic. Although sadhana bhajan may go on, it'd be like a machine without a soul. Simply doing japa, simply reading, simply I have to get it done, but they'll have no soul inside, basically, on account of the influence of the upashakas. So this is the anartha that comes from bhakti. Naturally, bhakti is very powerful, very attractive, so things do come to a person who does bhakti. And if you get absorbed in those things, not being attentive to how they may be imperceptibly, not being attentive, and therefore they're imperceptibly, leading one into material absorption, then your bhakti will be curtailed. And this certainly can be seen for real. This is a real thing. It happens quite regularly, actually. So that's scary. All right. So he goes on to say here, having discussed the 4 categories of narta, now he wants to discuss their nullification. Right. So he's mentioned there are 4 categories. Now he's described those 4 categories. Now he wants to talk about their nullification. So there are 5 degrees of nullification. So he says here, cessation of 4 kinds of anarthas, right? He mentioned the 4 categories, is of 5 types. So eka desha vartini, which means partial, bahu desha vartini, which means extensive or pervasive here, prayiki, which means almost complete, purna, complete, and atyantiki, absolute. The difference between purna and atyantiki means purna means it's complete, so all the anartha has been destroyed, but there's some chance that it can reappear. Particularly, this is in the case of the anarthas that arise from aparad. So that means you're still in the material world and you have no anartha because you've attained platform of bhav bhakti, prem bhakti. But in purna, there's some chance that it might appear or some can come up again. That happens really with the aparad only. Atyantiki, absolute, means when you've actually attained the association of the Supreme Lord in the spiritual world. So there's no question of the anartha reappearing. So that is the difference between purna and atyantiki distinction. Okay, so he wants to describe these 5 degrees of nullification with the different categories of anarthas. So he does that here, beginning with aparad, because aparad is the most heinous of the 4 types. So he says, according to the logic, gramo dhagda pato bhakna, the village burned, the cloth is torn. So this logic refers to when a village is burned, it's the fire starts in one place and gradually moves throughout the entire village until the whole thing is burned. Or similarly, when you're tearing a cloth, you start to tear at one place and then rip it until it's completely ripped. So in the same way, the nullification of anartha is like that. It starts in one place, eka desha vartini, and then gradually it becomes bahu desha vartini, prayiki, purna, atyantiki. That's the logic that's being used here. So according to the logic, the village burned, the cloth is torn. The cessation of aparodhata anartha is eka desha vartini after bhajan kriya. So when you start bhajan kriya, anishita bhajan kriya, that means the anarthas that come from aparads are partially destroyed. They are bahu desha vartini at the stage of nishta. When you become nishta, they are very nicely destroyed. Bahu desha means extensively destroyed. When you come to the stage of prayiki at the stage of rati. So when you attain bhav bhakti, then your anarthas are almost completely destroyed. Because Rupa Goswami, he does mention that the reason there's a distinction between bhava and prema is because there is some suffering in bhava that comes from the effects of aparad. So the effects of aparat can last and exist all the way up into reti or bhav bhakti. Whereas in prema, there's no effect there from the aparat. So that's why he said it prayiki, it is almost destroyed, but there's some effect of aparat. That is why he is still doing sadhana to get prema bhakti. That is a distinction between bhav and prema. And that is why Rupa Goswami says that there are 3 degrees of uttam bhakti: sadhana, bhav, and prema. If you're going to read the commentary there, right there in 121 of BRS, you can see what this discussion is there. It's very nice. Okay, so it's prayiki at the stage of rati. It is purna at the stage of prema. So no more effects of aparad at the stage of prema. And adnyantiki on attaining the lotus feet of the Lord. Obviously, if you're attaining the association of the lotus feet of the Lord, there's no question of the anartha coming from aparad. Okay, so that is how the nullification takes place from aparad. Interesting. So question, Chittiketu and the 4 Kumars, they have prema. So, but it is seen that not the 4 Kumars. Why did I put the 4 Kumars here? Jai Vijay. Let me change it up real quick. So the 4 Kumars, Jai Vijay, they have prema, but it is seen that they committed some aparad, or at least apparently it is seen. If you look at the 6th canto, the Chittiketu Leela is coming toward the end of the canto. So there in chapter 17, it looks like Chittiketu he already attained prema for Sankarsana. Then he is flying on the Vimana with so many Vidadara ladies. And he's coming upon Shiva. And on his lap is sitting Goddess Parvati. And they're surrounded by sannyasins. So you can imagine the sight. I think Chittiketu is also surrounded by ladies on the Vimana, if I recall. In any case, he sees that you're sitting in the middle of so many sannyasis, and you have the goddess just sitting on your lap in the midst of that association. So he like cracks some joke about it, which was actually intended as a glorification of Shiva, but Parvati didn't take it as glorification. She got offended. So she cursed him to go to hell, like literally. So he becomes the demon Vitrasura. So someone may give comment that, look, he had prema, but he committed aparad to Shiva, and he got severe reaction for his aparad. He had to take birth as a demon. So that contradicts your point that upon attaining prema and the association of the Lord, which was the case for Chittiketu and also Jai Vijay, that there's no question of the reappearance of the anartha from aparad. But look, Chittiketu, he committed aparad, and he had to take birth as a demon. So he wants to make reconciliation with this, if someone shall say this. So he says this in speaking about Chittiketu. The incident of Chittiketu committing an offense is only apparently an offense, not actually an offense. What's the evidence? This is evidence since there is no difference in the wealth of prema existing in him, either in his position as an associate of the Lord or after getting the body of the demon Vitrasur. Famous verses in the Bhagavatams, 6th canto, chapter 11, I think it's verse 24, 25, 26, and 27. I think those are the verses. These verses are considered by the Vallabha Sampradaya, Pushti Marga, as the essence of the entire Bhagavatam. And Jiva Goswami, also commenting on these 4 verses in Priti Sundarbha, says that these verses were due to the outpour of his priti, of his love. They're very famous verses. I guess one could read them, but anyway, my time's almost up. If you want to hear those verses, you can pull it up as a question. We can look at them from the Bhagavatam. They're very beautiful verses. Sidebar, in our episode on prayer with Sachinanda Maharaj, she also made reference to these 4 verses. So in any case, these are verses that are due to the outpour of priti. So he's saying here, if he actually committed aparad, how can there be an outpour of this level of priti or love? So we have to understand that actually that was not due to aparad. That was for some other reason this thing is going on. So what about Jaya and Vijay? They committed aparad to Kumaras, and then they got cursed and had to take birth as demons. So they have attained the association of the Lord without beginning. So atyantiki. So how can there be any anartha in them? So this is answered here also. He says here, he writes, Shiva Shrunat, in the case of Jaya and Vijay, the cause of their so-called defense is the prema that blossomed in them. They prayed to the Lord, "O Prabhu, O Lord of Lords, Narayana. We desire to fight, but we cannot see anyone strong enough to fight with you. Though we are strong, we are not averse to you. Somehow make us inimical to you and relish the bliss of fighting. We are unable to bear that your spontaneous perfection may diminish even the slightest. Decreasing your affection for your devotees, please fulfill the desire of your servants." So if somehow, based on this incident, the same offensive desire appears in the mind of a sadhaka, then he should overcome the desire by his intelligence. So the Jai Vijay had desire to engage the Lord in Yuddharasa, fighting, because here it's been described that there should not be any lack in the Lord. So he also wants to fight, but no one to fight with him. So the devotee has to become his enemy. But in order for that to happen, the Lord has to make arrangements. So they prayed in this particular way. And therefore an arrangement was made. They got cursed. They took birth as Hiranyaksha, Hiranyakashipu in one life, as Ravana and Kumbhakarna another life, and Shishupal, Dantavakra another life, third life. That was to give pleasure to the Supreme Lord. So these are not examples of people having prema and then committing aparas. They should not be cited. That's basically the point that he's making. The last sentence here is for us. If you hear these stories and you start to think, I wanna serve the Lord by fighting with him. And so Sri Vishwanath says that's imitation. And you should overcome such an offensive desire by your intelligence. So this desire of Jaya being Jaya, this is the outpour of their prema. So prema is filled with many astonishing emotional states. They're called as sanchari bhavas, and they're practically incomprehensible. Even the emotional states of a materialistic person, like someone in the material world, is quite a tapestry of raga and dvesha and so on. And although you have some general categories of the emotional states in the material world, it is also quite complex and very difficult to understand. How you tell a joke with someone, one moment they are laughing, and next moment they are cursing you out, maybe for the same joke also, because so many things are going on. It's very complex, tapestry of emotional, and that is all the more so in the case of prema. So many desires come up in prema, and you see that and you think, oh, so I have that desire, but that desire will be kalpana, it'll be imagination, because your emotional state is basically not existing yet. There's a poor little sadhaka with a hard heart trying to get a foothold in devotion. So he says we should correct such desires with our intelligence if anything like that should come up. Okay, a couple other things. Just one more slide here. Having discussed the nullification of anarthas with aparad, now he takes up the topic with the other categories, saying this. So cessation of dushkritota anartha is almost complete, prayiki, after bhajan kriya. What? Makes one wonder, wait, am I doing bhajan kriya? It is almost complete after bhajan kriya, and is complete at the appearance of nishta, and is absolute at the appearance of asakti. And this, of course, also applies to the sukrit dota anarthas, the anarthas that come from piety. So he's saying here, from bhajan and kriya, it's almost complete. If you attain nishta, it's complete. Nishta is such a beautiful position to be in. Like the anarthas that come from sin and piety are completely annihilated at the stage of nishta bhakti. What? Wow. And is absolute if you attain asakti. So that means there's no question of such anarthas coming up. Okay. Well, asakti, as we'll come to hear about it, is itself a very extraordinary state of awareness. You'll see how he describes it. It's kind of mind-blowing. Okay, so cessation of bhaktuta anarthas is partial at bhajan kriya and complete at the stage of nishta. So that means if you attain Nishta, the tendency to become bewildered by the Upashakas is not there. And it's absolute at the stage of Ruchi. You get taste for your bhajan, taste for Nam, Shravan, and so on. Then there's no question of the Bhaktuta Anartha affecting you. So realize Mahajanas have ascertained this principle by thoroughly deliberating all the facts. There was a little diagram that was in Srila Narayan Maharaj's edition of Madhurya Kadambini, and but it's not coming out like it. I was trying to I'm really bad with the technology. I don't know how to do much, and I was trying to cut and paste the diagram and put it in the thing, but as you can see, it didn't come out properly. But it's showing how the anartha nivritti is going on here. In the case of these 4 categories of anarthas. Anyway, so that's the discussion. Now he's going to go into a little bit of, he wants to reconcile that we hear the glories of the holy name. For example, the glories of Namabas are described in Ajamel Lila, right? Ajamel does 1 Namabas, literally 1 Namabas chanting he does. And the, what do you call it? The sinful reactions get destroyed, as well as their cause, which is material desire, as well as material desire's cause, which is ignorance. All of that got destroyed by 1 Namabas chanting. So, and there's much discussion of how the holy name destroys, let's say, anarthas, and quite comprehensively, even from chanting 1 name. So how does one reconcile that presentation of Shastra about the glories of the holy name and this discussion about this this degrees of nullification, Ekadarsha Vartini, Bahudesha Vartini, Prayiki, Purna, Atyantiki, that those 2 seem incongruent. The glories of the holy name, even 1 chanted destroys comprehensively, and yet there's these degrees of nullification. So Sri Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur wants to reconcile those 2 discussions and his anartha nivritti discussion. So we'll take that up tomorrow because it's already 9 o'clock. We'll see if anyone has any questions. Agape says, I have 2 questions. Number 1, in regards to the weeds of bhakti, upashakas, okay, how do we reconcile the idea that as long as we keep practicing bhakti, we will become purified? As long as we keep practicing bhakti, we will become purified. Okay. Is it because the weeds lead to aparad, or is weed absorbed bhakti ineffective even if we don't commit aparad? Can you ask, this is not clear to me what this question is asking. Do you mind clarifying it, Agape?
Very well. Hey, so I'm talking about how our desires will be purified, the idea that no matter what our intentions are, if we're attracted to some aspect of bhakti, keep doing it and we'll become purified. So, yeah, are these weeds a danger only because they eventually lead to offenses, or can this not? Okay,
got it. Okay. So the weeds are dangerous. They, of course, can definitely lead to offenses but what's being mentioned here is that the problem is they lead to absorption. There's one thing where you have desires, they're coming up, and you're just okay, I'm gonna just do bhakti, and they will gradually be purified, or they'll be destroyed by the progress of my bhakti. But when one is inattentive to the weeds, and these are called as bhakti anartha, so they're coming from bhakti. So you're getting things that coming from bhakti, fame, recognition, appreciation, and you start to really dig it. This is nice. When I was a materialist, hardly anyone paid attention to me, and now I'm getting so much attention. I'm getting money, I'm getting position, I'm getting offers, go here and go there, and do this and do that. And you start to really dig it. You're getting facility. I got the new Apple Watch, I'm getting a new iPhone. This is one of the faults that a lot of people levy at our sadhus in ISKCON. Our sadhus means our saffron-clad sadhus that water. They have the new, iWatch. And here in Bhakti Center, one devotee came, saffron devotee, quite popular. and he did a program here at Bhakti Center. And, so many, especially Indian bodies, people came. And after the program, one of my friends who also came to the program, he was like, he couldn't hear the class because he just noticed that the speaker had like the latest Apple Watch on. It really disturbed his mind. So, he was trying to like ask me questions like what I thought about that or how to see that situation. And like I understand where he's coming from, but you got to say it in such a way that you don't end up committing sadhu ninda aparad. In any case, the point here is that you start to dig that. So much of this is coming to you and you dig it. And so your desire for bhakti becomes, you say, drowned out or flooded, so to speak, by this material thing. And so you get materially absorbed. So that has happened to a lot of our, devotees historically. They were in high positions as gurus, let's say, even up to the point of being gurus. And then they got absorbed in like money and like followers, and they started like manipulating their followers or making all sorts of transgressions against their followers. Like, how does that happen? Well, they were doing bhakti, from this analysis at least, they were doing bhakti and they were getting so much facility from that. Material facility, psychological facility, whatever. And they started to really dig it. Like, yeah, this is good, this is nice. So then it creates absorption and materialism, which of course can then lead to offenses because materialism basically means, you're absorbed in ego, I and mine, and then someone's, after what you consider to be yours, and you become enemies, and that way you commit aparad. So the idea here is that they create offenses. So you have to be attentive to that. So I always like to say, because, I definitely experienced this effect of bhakti, I would say, not to the degree, how it comes depends on the strength of your bhakti and how much you're doing. But I get tons of appreciation all the time, like on a weekly basis. I get a lot of love from all over the place, like literally all over the world. People messaging me, sending me money, like that's like normal for me. And so when I feel like, yeah, this is good, this is nice, yeah, you like that, you starting to really get that part, and your desire for bhakti is not being nourished because of the preoccupation with the materialism thing. So I've like tried to train myself to be largely stoic, just in general. I think I'm a very generous person. Like I think I'm a loving person, but when I'm in people's association, I can come off as just like very stoic, even when they're like appreciating me, and I've kind of trained my mind that way. I kind of regret it to some degree, but I've kind of trained my mind to be just like very stoic, like not to take it too seriously. And not that the person who's saying that isn't serious about it, but I also know, like, if I get caught with my hand in the cookie jar, because I am a conditioned soul and, cookies are still attractive to me, and I get caught with my hand in the cookie jar, the same people who are glorifying you will be the first to like crucify you. I've seen that happen in my short 20 years. I've seen that in Krishna consciousness. I've seen it happen. So I've kind of trained myself to be a little bit stoic about it and kind of just keep the perspective like, well, until I have bhava, what value in one sense are all these things that are coming, as we can come to believe from bhakti. And as in the definition of sadhana bhakti, kriti sadha bhavat sadha bhava sadhana nabida. So Rupa Goswami says that this sadhana attains is sadhya at the stage of bhava. So they, in the commentary, it's described there that this means that until you attain bhava, then you're not really getting the fruit of your sadhana. Until your heart has become soft, tadashma sadham hridaya patedam yagrihyamana harinamadheya navikraye tata yatavikaro nitrejalam rushuraheshu harsha. Until your heart is changed from stone to butter. You understand? This verse is saying ashma sadham. Prabhupada's translation is still framed heart. It means the essence is stone-hearted person. So until stone melts, it is described Mahaprabhu or even Krishna when he would play his flute, or when Mahaprabhu would sing, stones would melt. You can only imagine how Mahaprabhu would go to Jagannath Puri, take a darshan of Jagannath Ji from the Garuda Stamba, and he would lean against the pillar, and like a whole imprint of his body would be there left in the pillar from his ecstasy, you know. So that's what we want to happen to our heart. We want it to melt, which means easily stimulated by Krishna consciousness. So until you get that effect, then what are these other fruits? I like, for me personally, I always try to keep that at the fore of my psyche when glorification or facility is coming. And that way you can be attentive to the upashakas. That's what I'm trying to say. Otherwise, these things are coming and you're, you know, that keeping bhava, you know, keeping your sadhya super clear. When I was in IPSI, I was giving classes on this, that you have to be really clear about what your sadhya is. You know, sadhana means for the purpose of attaining sadhya. So what is your sadhya? What is the goal of your Krishna consciousness? Don't just say Krishna prema. Like, what have you embraced as your personal sadhya in Krishna consciousness? You want to be a coward boy? You want to be a coward girl? You want to, like, what is your sadhya? If you say to be purified, that is not a sadhya. That is an incidental effect of doing bhajan. That's not a sadhya. So I think this thing, the reason why devotees get victimized by the upashakas is because they don't know what their sadhya is. And I mean, when you don't know what your sadhya is, you can be distracted by other things, right? There's that song, I think. I mean, I've never listened to the Beatles, but I think George Harrison has a song where there's a line that states that if you don't know where you're going, then any road will get you there. So I think the reason devotees get victimized by the upashakas is because it's not clear to them what their sadhya is. Because if it is clear, then everything in relationship to the sadhya is pale in nature, like tasteless and pale. Like, what is this nonsense? Or even as a glorification that's genuinely coming from the heart of someone, you like take it like, oh, thank you so much. I needed that encouragement today, but it's not my sadhya. So anything less than my sadhya is not going to be that appealing. But if you don't know what your sadhya is, then so many things can come up and it can be appealing to you. You get distracted. So that's my reflection on that, why I think it happens that devotees get, you know, we get bewildered by the upashakas because you don't know what the sadhya is, and so you're allowing everything to enter into your psyche and gain your appreciation. So
that's really helpful. Thank you, Prabhu. So I guess that where my confusion was is like when we're first starting out, you know, we're typically materially absorbed, and we might have like one of these, you know, upashaka motivations or absorptions, but I guess as our bhakti grows, then it's our responsibility to shift our absorption towards our sadhya or attaining bhav.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. All these desires will be there, and they will be destroyed by bhakti. But by doing bhakti, so many things will come that are nice, and then they can give rise to those seeds of desire and liberation in the heart. And then you give more attention to that than to your sadhya, because you don't even know what your sadhya is. Then that becomes a problem for you. So the second question here is, what about Dhruva Maharaj, who killed all those innocent yakshas and had to be stopped by Manu? Is that the same category as the Chittaketu Jaya Vijaya examples? No. But honestly, that's a really good question. That pastime is so bewildering to me for the same reason that you're asking it. I have to reflect on that a little bit deeply, because it's very interesting. Dhruva got praying. He's attained the association of the Lord, and he was walling out on all those yakshas. And that pastime has messed with me so much. I really need to, I actually want to ask about that, because I've looked at the commentaries that are available to me, and I haven't seen anything that's been particularly insightful, like for why that happened or how that happened. I mean, usually you get well, it's the Leela, some Leela. Even that explanation hasn't come. So I'm also curious about it. So I'm not gonna offer any. I have nothing to offer here for that. But it's a very good question. It's one that I've had also, and maybe this is a reminder that I need to pursue the answer to that. It's very interesting. Mukunda says, "Is Bharat Maharaj's attraction to a deer not considered an anartha?" It is from the perspective of educating sadhakas. But as we've discussed in these classes on several occasions, Krishna will create some situation in order to augment the bhava of his bhakta. So the outstanding example of this, of course, is the gopis of Vrindavan and the reunion chapter of the Rasa Leela, chapter 32. So the gopis asked him why he didn't properly reciprocate their love. And he's giving an answer that the reason he doesn't do so is the purpose of augmenting love. And he says it's just like he gives the example of someone who has attained wealth and then lost it. And in their grief from having lost the wealth, they can think of nothing else. So this is a tactic that Krishna does with his bhaktas or prem bhaktas, who are, you say, new premikas. The other example is Narada Muni, also in the first canto, chapter 5, 6. The same tactic is used to augment his bhava. So there also, in the case of Bharat Maharaj, this answer is given. So yeah. Right. Okay, so that answers that. Okay, if there's anything else I can ask now, forever hold your peace, or hold it until tomorrow. Pause for there. We're good? Okay, I think I'm gonna try to send, oh, the twins have a question. Really, I missed that. Where is it? Oh, where, I don't see, what?
Prabhu, Hare Krishna. I was just asking the verse that you quoted about Jaya and Vijay praying to the Lord for giving them animosity so that they can fight the Lord and fulfill his desire. I just wanted to ask, where is that verse from?
No, this is Sri Vishwanath's explanation in the Madhurya Kadambini. So I don't, it's not a verse. Maybe it's coming in some Purana. I didn't see from the commentaries that they made reference to any particular Purana, but that was written here in the Madhurya Kadambini by Sri Vishwanath. I'm also pretty sure he's taking this from Jiva Goswami's Priti Sandarbha, where Jiva Goswami specifically unpacks this particular episode to explain that their quote, fall down is not due to anartha, but rather due to desire to perform pastimes with the Supreme Lord. But I have to look it up because I don't know which Anucheta of the Priti Sandarbha this is appearing. I'm almost 100% sure that he's drawing it from the Priti Sandarbha.
Okay, thank you, Prabhu. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
But we should not think that just as Jaya and Vijaya desire to perform Leela, so also we have come in this material world. Nah, because we're not absorbed in the Lord. Even when Jaya and Vijaya came in the material world as demons, they were 100% absorbed in Krishna, right? 100%. They cannot but think of Krishna around, right? So we cannot say like that we are like this because we're not thinking of Krishna. How are we struggling? We're struggling to remember Krishna while we're doing our japa. So yeah, no comparison to be made there. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so we'll pause here for now and we'll take up the discussion tomorrow. Hari Om Tat Sat. Later, fam. Yeah, no.